So there's one thing I have learned in life: never follow an astronaut.
That's pretty good, because I try never to follow the videos.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
It's like you're just never as cool as what we look like.
So this is Steve Bowen. He's flown 3 shuttle flights. He is a retired captain in the U.S. Navy and is a native of Cohasset, Massachusetts, and a graduate of Cohasset High. And so, Steve,
Hi. So did you have any questions?
So the general introduction, similar to our the NASA social, is similar to our Twitter events that we used to do in the past, the tweet ups, the launches. So the same thing here. We have a lot of very well connected people, and we've invited them here for the sample return robot, and we're giving them the VIP treatment for accessibility to our robots.
Excellent. I could never figure that Twitter stuff out. So. way too complicated for me. So, yeah, no. So glad you all could make it out here today. I've actually had a great day yesterday, getting to watch the teams compete, and that was really exciting. I don't know if you all have had a chance to go down and look at any of the robots, and they're pretty cool. And I was one of the things I've been sort of thinking of over the past day or so is, the challenge itself sounds really simple. You all know what it is. Start here, go out and get this thing, and bring it back, right? Simple. So, but you can't use, GPS or a magnetic compass. Well, maybe a little more difficult. You have to do all the navigation on board. Now, how are you going to do that? And so each of the teams kind of tries to solve the problem in a different way. And that's the part that's really fascinating, is the different ways people approach a similar problem. They come with different budgets. They come with different, knowledge bases. I was joking yesterday that, how the robot behaves is a reflection of how these people actually think. I don't think that's fair, just for the way some of the robots behave may not have been as linear as some of the way people think are. So it was really exciting to watch and then get the opportunity to meet the teams. And then tomorrow, there's another public event, but it's always great to get to talk to school kids today, which anytime I get a chance to go outside of Houston, or actually away from NASA centers, it's always fun to go out and talk to people, just to get a bit of the understanding of what they think we do, tell them what we really do, and see if we can get some of that communication going. So, other than that, what else am I supposed to say? Actually, nobody told me what to say. I just got it. So, it's always the fun part. But since you people like talk on keyboards,
You're doing it right if they're all talking.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's success.
As long as you can end up with no filter. So, I actually. On 132, if you remember that crew, we always had to make sure we had a filter for some of our cameras. So, educational opportunity for it. So you all somebody must have a question.
So what are you doing? What's your role with NASA right now?
Right, so I'm still active in the astronaut office. The astronaut office is shrinking. I think we're at less than 50 now, which means that we're still trying to cover the same number of ground jobs and opportunities that we have always, which means we can't. So we're all really busy. I was in charge of the EVA branch of the office up until January of this year, and then because during the 4 years basically I was doing nothing but flying, my Russian got real rusty and my robotics training fell way behind. So I turned over my job in January to Dan Burbank, who now has the EVA branch, and I went to Canada for some robotics training, and I'm spending more time working on my Russian. So I need to get it up to a certain level, finish my robotics qualifications, and then I'll be assignable for a space station mission. So that's hopefully not too distant future, but we'll see. That's what I do now. And I still work in the EVA branch, and I still work for Dan. It's just I'm not in charge anymore, so I get to go less meetings. Less meetings is a good thing.
So if you go back up to the space station, what would you doing there?
What space station crews do now? I mean, you go up and you conduct experiments, and it's interesting. I was talking to Kevin Ford. Now, Kevin was a Air Force test pilot, really just amazing pilot, great doctorate in aerospace engineering, really incredibly sharp guy. And he came back from space station. One of the things he said it was such an incredible experience, so much better than he even expected, because the way that people describe, it's 2.5 years of training, and that's kind of a ponderous amount of training. And a lot of what you end up doing is sort of repetitive. The experiments that you conduct, you kind of you don't feel necessarily attached to them in a part of them in the training. But he said that it was very different on him. He felt really that he was actually able to contribute as a crew member to the science itself. And that's the exciting part. That's the part that astronauts really want. They want to be a contributor, somebody to help with the basic research and the science that's being done on the space station. I think we all join the office with that expectation, and it's great to understand that that's actually how people come back feeling. We all want to be explorers. We want to help and contribute as part of the team. So, yeah, that's hopefully what we'll be doing.
How music is?
No, well, you don't want me to sing first of all, but yeah, that's all a sidelight. And it's interesting. Every so often somebody does something up there that gets I guess more social media nowadays is the term we would use. Sort of excites the tentacles out there, and we see a little blip in the popularity and the visibility of NASA. But one of the points I try to make when I talk to audiences in general, students in particular, is that engineering and science and exploration is so exciting on its own. We just do a very poor job in the media in general in presenting it. And a lot of times I think that Hollywood has made it look too easy. And the joy in solving a difficult problem gets lost. And I think our culture even today sometimes, we don't challenge the students enough to solve these difficult problems and give them stuff that would excite them. There's nothing more exciting, I'll attest to this, to solving a problem that other people that you work with couldn't. It just makes you feel like, wow, I understood this. I really got something great out of it. And so I think our popular culture does not do a good job of that. I give my wife a hard time. She was an English teacher. And there used to be this thing on MTV where this woman was fleeing from numbers around the streets because it was part of their countdown thing. And I used to joke that was her because she was a little math adverse. She's very good at math, which is the irony because she handles all the bills and runs the house. And but I think sometimes that we present students with that aspect, that somehow math and science are difficult or for the other guy. But it's actually exciting and interesting and something we should all be able to do. It should just be an expectation. It is really, no kidding, really cool. It may not be, Hollywood overnight solution, but it is nothing better than that. Go ahead.
For the layman, what is it that you do up there? I know you
The
say
layman.
you're doing some experiments. Like, what type of stuff could you do up there?
Be careful how you use that term because, in your world, I'm a layman too. I have no clue, how social media in general works. And so it's, across human experience, I come from the submarine force, and I get the question, what's it like on a submarine, or what's it like doing this? In general, in human experience, we all have the same range of feelings and emotions, so it's comparable to what you do. You go up there, we follow procedures, we do what we're asked to do. We get the incredible experience of being able to float, which never gets old. There's nothing better than, if you get a little frustrated and you're working on stuff and things aren't necessarily going your way that day, you kind of just you let go for a second, you get to float, you say, I'm floating in space. That is really cool. And then if you have the opportunity, you get to go look out a window. Windows, I wish there was one facing up. We don't have a window facing up yet on Space Station, but hopefully we'll get one someday. Those things are really what set it apart. Otherwise, you're no kidding working. You're helping the primary investigators get their experiments done and helping them get the work done. In addition, you have to run the engineering plant, run the system that's allowing you to live in space. So you'll see the maintenance sometimes takes a lot of time. We had the ammonia leak come out had to go outside and do an emergency EVA, and that solved the problem, which is good. You know, there's things that chew up time that you don't necessarily get all the credit for. Every day you have to do 2 hours of exercise, and that's really important to make sure that when you land back here on Earth, you're able to function. And I think Chris Hatfield over the past few weeks has done a really good job of explaining just how bad he feels, you know, being back here on Earth, how hard it is to overcome that experience of being on orbit for that long. So, you know, that takes up 2 hours of time. You do need to still sleep. It's very important that, you know, you're up there for 6 months, and this is something, you know, I learned in the submarine force. You cannot run a 100-yard sprint continuously for 6 months. So you have to pace yourself. You have to maintain that self-awareness and that self-presence to understand how you're functioning long-term as well. So, you know, that takes up a little bit of time. Maintaining the systems on board, whether it be the oxygen generator or the carbon dioxide removal system, the water recovery system, you know, even some of the more mundane things sometimes take up time as far as, you know, fixing the ATUs or communication systems, make sure the computers, you know, are working. Because all that stuff is just like, it's your life. You're now living in space. So that's what you do up there. You know, you're living your life in space. It's just a different environment where you get to float.
I make videos.
And make videos. And that's, you know, that's another interesting thing, because the cameras are almost always on. You know, and this started early on in the space station. You know, shuttle, you turn the cameras on and off. The station is pretty much, they leave them on all day. I think I'm not sure if it's Expedition 8 or 9 or whatever. They basically turn the cameras on, so they just leave them on. And so people see you living in the fishbowl, which is, I think, sometimes hard for people down here to comprehend that you're watching people living in space, potentially all the time. It's important for us to understand that the cameras are always on too, so that, you know, there's a bit of decorum and that needs to be exercised as well. But, you know, that's the way life is.
For that last YouTube video, the music video, it seems like that camera is very high definition.
Well, you have a high definition cameras on board, and it's nice to have them. The I think 126 we had the first, was it our flight? I think it was my first flight that we brought up the first HD camera. And actually Don Pettit sent down the first HD video of when we were doing the rendezvous. So he sent down the Bespoke Zarathustra, the music from 2001 at the same time back then. And I think he brought, it's funny because on his iPod, I think that was the only thing that was on there was that little bit of music. Because he knew he wanted to send down that HD video through our MPC system. So yeah, HD video is great. At some point we hope to get those cameras outside. I don't know if you watched the spacewalk. If you watched the spacewalk last month, they had said they were working in a position where you could actually get a good view out of one of the windows. So the HD video was outstanding with that spacewalk, and it'd be nice to get HD cameras outside. And I think there's a plan down the road to get them outside, because then when you get the Earth views, and I know before I ever became an astronaut, sometimes I'd turn on the NASA channel, and I was hoping they'd be running Earth views, just so I could just watch the Earth go by on TV. In HD, that would be really nice, but we'll get there at some point.
Do you know if they did any post-production work? Because there was a lot of like solar flares in the. So I don't know. Is that part of the video thing, or is that the?
Well, I'm sure they probably edited that.
There
in.
was post-production.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because it seemed like
Yeah, because Chris
a little bit on the.
sent that down.
Well, his
I guess
son
Sun-
had-
Sun-
yeah,
His son
his
helped put all that stuff together.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's a lot of great video out there that people put together. It's available on YouTube. And, you know, the whole time-lapse photography that we're able to do. You know, with that camera. That camera's really nice. Still haven't solved the problem, and this is a problem I threw to Don Pettit, which was we need to get that transition from darkness to sun continuously, because that is a view that nobody's ever been able to capture with a camera. You know, you look at those images that you see on Earth, and they're fantastic. They're much better in space. Pass that on. But that transition from darkness into light is just breathtaking. And nobody's really been able to capture that well. There's an interesting little 8-second clip that I've got of myself where it's dark, they're filming me, and it's dark, and I'm in my EMU outside doing a spacewalk. And then you get this color transition to the, sort of like goes to a yellow, a different yellow, and slightly different yellow, then a bright white. I mean, it's just in a very short period of time. And that imagery would be just fantastic to capture in that definition. So someday we'll get a camera out there that can do that.
Would the camera need to be outside to record that?
No, if we got it in one of the windows and looking in the right direction, it'd be, I mean, you don't have to be looking at the sun. You can get it just as off the horizon of anything. It's really an amazing sight. Yeah, it is much better being up there.
Do you have any ideas? I'm fascinated by the idea in my previous career and my current one of taking that problem solving, that joy of problem solving, and telling that story. Have you, I'm cheating, but have you got any ideas? How do you take that beyond the the cool videos and stuff like that? How do you translate that?
That's why we have teachers. That's a, I'm trying to. I don't think I did a good enough job yesterday when I was talking to teachers, imparting how important they really are, and establishing that at a very early age, that challenging students to solve problems and to fail. You learn. You should be allowed to make mistakes. You should be allowed to make errors. Obviously, consequences of errors in some environments is a lot higher, but there's definitely, that is where the challenge needs to be. And we need to be socially accepting of failure. We have spent so much energy and time demanding perfection from students at a very early. I always tell this story too when I'm talking to students, is I was not a very good reader early on. Actually, my teacher told me I was in the lowest reading group, first grade. Miss Valerie, she knows the way that. But we don't necessarily tell children that I know you can do better. I see it in you. You can do better, and I'm going to challenge you to do better. So by the end of the year, I was actually in the top reading group. And what I learned from that as a student, I learned that, hey, that there is some reason they're teaching this stuff to, because I still read pretty voraciously even today. And I, for my experience, so any time I had a problem in a class, whether it be math, science, social studies, whatever, I'd always remember to spend a little bit more time working on that class. Because there's some reason these teachers are teaching us this stuff, they want to get some piece of information, maybe not exactly the information they're teaching us, but that ability to solve the problem, that ability to look a little further. And I think that little bit, that ability to challenge students, like that teacher challenged me, to go beyond, made me a better student, and got me to go be able to do this. That was pretty cool. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's my dad laid tile for a living, and I grew up carrying buckets of cement, and I often think of that when I was at the Naval Academy, and very happy I made it that far. But that's, it's pretty amazing when you think about it as a species, as humans as a species, and generically, that what we've been able to do. And interesting, the first time I actually kind of grabbed that concept, I was the first DVA on STS-132. Garrett and I had just installed the antenna on top of the Z1 truss there. So I'm on top of the space station. Garrett's gone. I'm doing cleanup, and they call from the ground and tell me to stand by. And having bin cap on, I know when they say stand by, it's not going to be a quick solution. So on the side of the suit, there's this thing called a BRT, which is sort of it's a little mechanical hand. And so I attached myself to the side of the antenna, and I was able to look over the entire back end of the space station, the Russian segment, for about 25, 30 minutes. And I'm sitting there looking, it's like, how in the world did some kid like me get the opportunity to fly? And what an amazing species that we're able to do that. Especially, the International Space Station is that. It's an International Space Station. I grew up in the Cold War. First time I went to Moscow, I went to Red Square, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm in Red Square. It's an incredible world. We're an incredible species. I don't think necessarily we give ourselves enough credit that we can solve problems, that we can do fantastic things. And I just get to be a little piece of that. This is really cool. And you guys get to be a little piece of that too. So it's all exciting.
So with all your training, what was the unexpected?
It's funny, the answer to that one is the unexpected part of all of my space shuttle training and my space flights was how little was unexpected. It is, no kidding, sometimes freakishly amazing how exactly similar they were able to train us for things to expect on orbit. And maybe it's sort of the way the concept, maybe it's just who they hired, but they piece together the training so that you actually have a very good understanding of what you're going to do, especially on a space shuttle mission where everything was so highly choreographed. Getting that expectation, that understanding, so that when you got to orbit, you were able to function. So I think the things that surprised people when they first got to orbit were some of the more mundane things, like how your body functioned on orbit. That, because you can never fully train that. And I remember, I think I was talking to Scott Kelly in a parking lot one time after I flew, and I said, "How do you explain to people?" Because you always get the question about launches. What does it feel like to launch into space? And he goes, "I never figured out how to explain it either." So that's, that one's unexpected, and I can't even explain it to you. What it feels like to launch into space. It's such a unique experience. But the really surprising thing is how well trained we were and how little the unexpected it was. But there's certain things there's no way you get that feeling the first time, actually every time you look at the Earth from space. It's that continuous Grand Canyon moment, as people say. Or actually, it doesn't have to be the Grand Canyon. It can happen in the woods. You turn a corner, you kind of like, wow, you see something or you feel something. C.S. Lewis actually had a way of looking. I think it's sort of that unexpected feeling of joy. Just get this overwhelming sense every so often when you have an experience, and that feeling happens a lot.
Goosebumps. I think we got time for one more question here.
So it better be good.
I actually saw you launch at KSC.
Excellent.
And that
First
was
flight.
132.
Ah, yes.
That was at
Yeah.
133.
I was there too.
Glad you were there.
I will tell you guys had much better views than I did because I was looking at lockers on both those flights. On 126, I was up on the flight deck, so I got to look out the windows. And so we got to orbit on 126, and suddenly we're getting emails from everybody. It turns out we didn't have the best view of 126's launch either, even though we were looking out the windows. Because 126 we launched at night, and just as we got past Mach 1, we went through a cloud barrier. You actually see ripples through the clouds if you ever watch the 126 video. And so I have never had the best view of my own launch. So I'm glad you guys had a good view.
You can read my blog about it.
I do like to read, so this is well established.
So, in your life, one pivot point that you can recall that really changed, so you might have been wanting to be a firefighter or a police officer or something, but you pivoted to something else.
So when the Edmonton Oilers didn't draft me in the 1982, growing up, you have all these interesting ideas as to what you want to be. So I kind of wanted to be an architect or a professional hockey player, and those were sort of the two things that, as a little kid, you kind of dream of. And once I got to high school, and I was taking all my mechanical engineering courses and mechanical drawing courses. I did that for 5 years, but understanding what engineering and physics were, I steered more towards the engineering side of things. To pinpoint any direction, if I have to go back to the early school teacher motivating me to go out and solve problems. It's little incidents like that if I were to sit here and try and piece together a single point, I don't think there is a single point. I think there's a whole series of little things. Even challenges like going to a hockey game and forgetting. I was a goaltender, and we only had one goaltender on most of the youth teams growing up, and forgetting a skate, leaving it at home.
Oh.
Suddenly, it's you feel really, really, really bad, but I never ever forgot another skate again. And the challenge at the time was, hey, if you're not serious enough to keep track of your equipment, maybe you don't want to be playing hockey. And that's true in so many things. So by the time I got to be on a submarine, if you're not willing to keep your little space taken care of, you probably shouldn't be on a submarine. If you're in space and you're living on the space shuttle, and there's 6 other people living in that tiny little thing, keep track of your stuff and think of the people around you when you're living your life. So little tiny things along the way, they all add up, and everybody has a different set of experiences in that regard. And you can never pinpoint to just one thing. Who knows? You know, who knows how you end up here? Oh, we gotta go.
Sorry, I'm always the party.
That's her job, Ashley.
Thank you very much for taking the time.